All right. Hey, welcome everybody to the Parishscope. That's right. Our wonderful titled podcast that we do named after our newsletter that goes out with the church. This is our third episode, so we're kind of going strong, seeing what happens. For us right now, it is July 26th. I kind of wanted to put the date in there because I'm going to make a couple references later, but I just wanted to put that in this July 26th today. So it's Wednesday, the 26th. So there you go.
I'm interested to see the significance of the 26th.
Well, when we talk about our stories today, I want to bring up something that's a little older. I'll make a reference to something that's a little bit newer. So I just kind of wanted to put in the date there.
Right.
I've noticed I don't really do that in other ones. The other ones are pretty neutral,
Yeah.
Like we talk about stuff that could be anytime, any factor.
As you would call it in the professional world, timeless.
It's timeless.
Yeah.
That's timeless. It's almost priceless, but it's definitely timeless. Oh, man. So anyway, our the first kind of thing that we do is we usually bring in some current events, some current stories. And so, do you have a story? Last time we started with mine.
Yeah.
So this time I figured we could start with yours.
You want to start with mine? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope I can get all the things right. But basically, the story I was looking at this week was that President Biden was talking about mental health care and how there's been a lot of speculations, or I don't know what you call it, speculations, but basically that insurance companies dealing with health are making it very difficult, a lot of red tape, a lot of small print things to basically say they don't have to pay for any sort of mental health or therapy, things like that. So Biden was talking about the fact that companies are openly trying to get away, not have to pay for that stuff. So it's a discussion on should they have to pay for it, or is that something, it's kind of a new thing for the most part. Not that therapy's new, but it's becoming more regular that people are like, you probably should go, get some help. Yeah.
I know a lot of companies call it like a preventative care. The idea being that if you handle this kind of care, whether it's exercise equipment, mental health stuff, seeing a therapist, psychiatrist, and all those things help you to prevent later illnesses down the road. And so that's kind of that idea of preventative care so that the insurance companies can save some of their money.
Right.
But I think okay, so here's one of the discussion points that I think is really good. We're asking the question, should they have to?
Right.
And here's my statement. How do you say this? Do you have to have insurance? Insurance is a paid thing.
Right.
It's a paid thing. And so you're technically going to get what you pay for, and obviously if you don't read the fine print, then yes, you can find yourself paying for something that you think you have only to find out that you don't really have it.
Of course.
So should a company be required to sell something that they didn't promise to sell?
True. And that's why since it's kind of becoming more and more regular, more and more people are thinking this is a good idea. That wasn't really part of the insurance company's thing.
Yeah.
But now that it's being, I guess you could say, somewhat marketed towards like this is a health issue. Yeah. So now health insurance, like, should that be included? And,
Yeah. And it is. It's a good question. And what I personally see, my personal belief, and this kind of goes back to our discussion that we had last week, especially with like Taylor Swift and everything.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that if you have a good insurance company that sells a quality product that's clear on what they sell, you're going to get happier customers, and the happier customers are going to be the ones that ultimately spread the knowledge about that particular insurance company. I get. See, the problem is that I get kind of both sides of the argument here.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I am a person who actually goes to see a therapist. So, I think it's a good thing. I think a lot of people, could actually benefit quite a bit from seeing a therapist. That's not to say that they're like insane or crazy or anything else. That's not it. But you go to see a therapist because a lot of times, when we have certain issues and things going on in our lives and our world, they can just kind of help you, kind of guide you through a little bit. And it's very helpful, and it's very, very beneficial. And so I definitely see a lot of positives when it comes to things like therapy. But when you get into that kind of thing, the question is should the insurance companies be required to pay for it? And I think if they're a quality insurance company and they just sell what they're going to sell, people will buy ultimately what they think that they're going to get. I don't see any harm in them not selling it. I don't like the trickery.
Yeah, the trickery is.
I don't like the trickery. I don't like it making it sound like they do sell it and then they really don't.
Right.
And I'm not a huge fan of that. But I don't think an insurance company should be required to sell such things.
Right.
I think people. This kind of comes back to the whole thing from back in the day with Obamacare, and one of the big things was, and I forget the name of the Catholic group that did this, but there was a big lawsuit dealing with that because they basically wanted these nuns to have in their insurance, basically to pay for abortions, and basically they said no, this is against our faith, and not only that,
doesn't pertain to us,
doesn't and shouldn't pertain to us in any capacity, and so we don't want to pay for that. And this became kind of a huge dust up, whether or not an insurance company should be forced to have certain things, certain coverage. I am of the personal belief. Now, listen, I always say this. This is not theological. Like you can have theological beliefs thinking that they should do that. I'm not going to argue the point of theology. I'm not going to say the Bible says so. I will say my personal beliefs are that they're not required to have it. I think if they have a good product, and again, going back to vocation, I think if you have a quality insurance company that has a quality product, ultimately it will kind of, I don't want to say take care of itself, but it, at the very least, I think you'd have less people complaining about it.
Yeah. Now I have a question for you, because I think there's a little bit of a stigma for some people that I guess in the long run, if you are a very faithful Christian, you read your Bible, you do everything, all the lessons God tells you to do, like you should have your stuff together. You should not, need anything else. But being that you've done therapy, do you find what's kind of the difference between that, like reading your Bible, following what God says, and then has that benefited you? I mean, I know you said it's benefited you.
Yeah, it has been. Absolutely. And I'll be honest with you. I guess I don't know where that kind of mentality comes from. The Bible tells us that we're going to go through some struggles, and we certainly do, but it never says that we can't lean on other people for help. Mm-hmm. And really with therapy, that's what you're doing. You're leaning on somebody for help. And oh, by the way, this person has specialized in trying to help you. Mm-hmm. That's what their degree's in. Their degree is all about trying to help you to the best of their ability. They've studied things like psychology, and psychology is always an interesting one. And people will say, "Well, that's a soft science," and it is, but it's still pretty darn awesome. It's pretty, they've studied enough people to know, generally speaking, what attributes most people are going to have in certain situations. Now, does that mean that they have everything pinpoint all the way to? No, of course not. Mm-hmm. That's why you got to pay somebody and go sit and talk with them and help them, and they can kind of help you and guide you through some of these issues and some of these things going on and help you to understand them. A lot of times, a lot of these therapists, they're not doing the work for you, but they're helping you to understand the work that you got to do. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. I mean, we a lot of times when we read the Bible, we're left going, okay, well that happened 2,000 years ago, but what do I do now?
Yeah.
That's why you go to church. That's why you go to Bible study, to learn out, how some of these things actually apply to you and how we can, as we go on our daily Christian walk, how we can do that. And I think sometimes we kind of short-sight that with therapy, like we're just going to have everything together. No. Mm-hmm. No. And in fact, on the other hand, I think that personally that God has actually placed people that are very skilled in these areas, who have gotten these degrees, who are very gifted in helping you walk through these things. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know. I just think about that a lot because I know growing up there were kids who, youth group, which, I mean, you don't take life advice from a 13-year-old, but
but they sounded real smart.
But they sound smart. Yeah, they do. But there's, I think, a little bit of a stigma of that. Like, well, if you just follow the Bible, you go to church, everything should be fine. Yeah. You shouldn't have any problems. Which I know we have sermons about how being a Christian isn't supposed to be just easy, but there are hard times. But I wonder about. I kind of wonder now. It's no secret that less people go to church. Mm-hmm. and mental health seems to be on the rise. Like more and more people are starting to struggle with things. So I wonder, just without that foundation, if that's one of the reasons. I'm not saying it's the only reason.
Yeah.
I don't want to get picked up by some conspiracy theorist.
Well, you see, and this is I think one of the dynamics that actually hurts us a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean the church, but I mean all people. We tend to go in extremes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I say going to see a therapist is good, that doesn't mean that I somehow think that any mental guidance we get through Scripture and the Bible is now bad.
Right. Yeah.
It's a both and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like I believe fundamentally that reading through your scriptures, that having faith, that going to your Lord in prayer is incredibly helpful, and not only helpful, almost needed for your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Can going to a therapist help you? Yes. Can going to a Christian therapist help you even more? I think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think that should be a criteria. Like whenever you guys are venturing out and you say, well, maybe it'd be good for me to see a therapist, and you say, okay, who should I go to? One of the criteria in my book should be, are they a Christian? Mm-hmm. Are they a Christian? I think that's a huge thing. And that's kind of the procedure I kind of did again whenever I was looking. So yeah,
it's interesting. All right,
yeah.
Well, what's your news story?
Well, okay, so here's part of the reference and why I added the date at the front, because here's the thing. The big story for today is Hunter Biden's plea deal, or lack thereof.
Oh, wow.
That is to say,
two stories about Biden. Who knew?
It's not, because you see, I'll be honest with you. I thought about this, and I was like, I just don't know if I'm really ready to kind of cover that kind of story yet. Yeah. I said I want to lay the groundwork first.
Okay.
And so that way I can always come back and, like if somebody says, well, I don't like how you do with this, I'll be like, oh, go listen to episode 3 on July 26th, go back and be like, hey, I listed it as July 26th, the third episode. So what I wanted to do instead was kind of handle a story from older, but allow that story to kind of lay some groundwork.
Okay.
For some way, because again, part of what we're trying to do here is we're trying to look at current events, but we're trying to look at current events through the Christian lens, through the Christian spectrum.
Right.
And so one of the stories I wanted to handle today was actually global warming.
Okay.
Right? A light issue.
No one gets fired up about that.
Nobody gets fired up about that. And I say that because it's crazy hot outside, even right now.
Oh, it's so uncomfortable. Yes.
It is crazy hot. But there was a story that came out a few weeks ago, and it was about that we had the hottest day on record in the world ever. And you read through this article, and it talks about all this stuff, and it's really fascinating. But there's just like anything, there's always like stuff that's missed and stuff that's gained. Right. One of the things that's missed is that the hottest day ever on record only goes back to 79. Because that's when they started doing the surface temperatures. So whenever they say they have the hottest day on record, they don't mean that in Pekin, Illinois, we had the hottest day ever. No, it might have only been 97. That's not going to be our hottest day ever. What they're talking about is the surface temperature of the Earth. Mm-hmm. And they have all these markers out here and satellites and all this kind of stuff that take these surface readings of the surface temperature. And they're calculating those out, and they're saying, okay, well, here's the average temperature for the planet. So they're taking one reading from like the coldest place on the planet, and another reading from the hottest place, and they're averaging these things all out. And so they had this thing saying this was the hottest day on record.
Right.
Well, at least from 1979. So maybe not quite the hottest day on record, just the hottest day we have on record over the last 40-some years.
Right.
Which is a little bit different than saying it's the hottest day we've ever had.
Yeah.
In 79, to put it in perspective, in 70s, we had kind of this global freeze going on, and everybody was afraid that the world was going to freeze. Some people that were born not born, but kind of lived and remember the 70s will sometimes talk about that. We had record snowfalls. We had huge piles of snow on the roads. 78, I think around here, around where I grew up, the big snowfall happened in 81, the year I was born. But around here, I think if I remember correctly, talking to some of the people, it was about 78. There was some big snowstorm. You can always correct me on that one, but I think it was 78.
I hate to say it, but my dad graduated high school in 77, and he's told stories about like the snow at that time.
Yeah.
How they literally drove through snowdrifts because that was the only way they were going to get home, is to just plow through a snowdrift and hope they could get through it and get home. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's 1979 that they started taking the surface temperatures and the overall temperature has been slowly rising, you can kind of see the element of global warming and climate change and all this kind of stuff. But as I wanted to discuss about this, because I want to discuss it from a Christian perspective, but I felt like it was important because sometimes what happens is we get these party lines,
Yes,
and they get drawn on the map, and it's like even more. You kind of get people that go, well, if you're Christian, you got to be Republican. If you're not Christian, you have to be Democrat, or vice versa, depending on where you go, what church you belong to, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
and I absolutely hate that. I absolutely hate that idea of party lines and all that kind of stuff. I much rather look at it from the standpoint of a theologian, but sometimes that can get a little wonky.
Right.
So like I said, here's my kind of foundational pull. When I was in college, I remember being taught the basic difference. If you took both political parties, and I'm not talking libertarian or some other radical whatever, but both political parties, the right and the left, and you narrowed them down to the very, very, very bare minimum of who they are. One would believe in something known as trickle-up economics. That is to say, they believe that if you find some way to give money to the poor will spend the money, and then that will cause people's jobs to increase, and then those people will spend money, and it'll cause their jobs to increase, and so on and so forth.
Right.
That's trickle-up economics. The other side believes in trickle-down economics. Trickle-down economics says, hey, these people that are extremely wealthy are doing a lot of work. Obviously, they know what they're doing. If we gave them more money, my guess is they would put that money to work too.
Right.
And so, therefore, they would basically hire more people. Those people would have more money to spend, and then they would spend more money, and so on and so forth. Right. And eventually, it would trickle on down, to the very bare minimum jobs that would be required. And so you got trickle down economics. And so there's your two basic difference. Trickle up tends to be on the left. Trickle down tends to be on the right. But you can see how the basic kind of forms out of them, right? So if you believe in trickle up economics, it's easy enough. Find some way to get money and then give it to the poor. The poor didn't earn the money, so you have to be able to supply that to them. Best way to do that, government, taxes. Taxes and other forms of programs to find some way to give the money to the poor, because you believe ultimately this is going to help the economy. The other hand, trickle down economics is a little bit more curious, right? First of all, how do you give money to somebody who's already doing a lot of good, a lot of businessy stuff with their money? They're not just going to take free handouts. Don't get me wrong. They probably would. But there was a time, I think, where businessmen probably wouldn't have. And to them, they say, okay, well, we'll just let them keep on more of their own money. Tax loopholes.
Right.
They create tax loopholes so that these businessmen can keep their own money, and if they can keep their own money, then eventually this can trickle down. And then furthermore, if you can kind of push these both to the extreme, you can kind of see where it goes. People that tend to be trickle-down economics have a tendency to want less regulations. It just goes less taxes, right? Less taxes, less government, less regulation, less everything. Whereas trickle-up economics want more. Why? Because how are you going to get money if you don't tax people, and if you don't have certain restrictions? You're going to need some of those restrictions. Now, all that being said, the extreme right, a lot of people think it's fascism. It's actually not. Most fascists are not right-leaning people. Most anarchists are. Anarchists would be the extreme right because they don't want any regulation at all.
Right.
To the point where they just want a madhouse.
Right. The purge.
Yeah, exactly. On the other hand, the extreme left would be kind of a form of fascism. And I mean, history bears this out, right? German, Hitler, Mussolini, most of these guys were extremely progressive.
Right.
To the extreme of dangerous extreme.
Yeah.
Now, America is nowhere near either one of those. I'm sorry.
We're not.
We can sit here and talk politics, and I know somebody will be like, well, this guy, but we're nowhere near either one of those. And basically my argument is as we look through Scripture, what we're going to find is sometimes one politician is right and sometimes the other politician is right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, we take this case of global warming, and here's a clear-cut case. We don't really have we know that the Earth is warming to a degree, but we have no real hardcore scientific evidence to know exactly what's causing it and how fast it's really, really, really warming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does the man-made carbon dioxide have an impact or not? Some people will say absolutely. We have this and this and this to back this up. Some people will say no because we have this and this and this to kind of parse that up.
Yeah.
So and again, we don't have any proof to know that this isn't some long-standing. Maybe it's 100-year cycle of weather. We just don't know. There's just so much that we don't know. Every time we think we know something, which is why you have all these doomsdayers that come out and say the world's going to end in 2 years if we don't do something, and then 2 years go by and we're like, it's not
still
that
here.
bad.
Yeah.
And my personal belief is that Jesus is going to return when he returns, and he's not going to allow us, if you will, to destroy the earth before he comes.
Right.
But that being said, because you see, the people on the right would be like, "Oh, right, yeah, lean on theology.
Right.
We can do whatever we want." And I'd say, no, that's incorrect. Because you see, God gives us all these great things, and we are stewards of these things.
Right.
Which means we should care for it. Which means if we understand that there's an imbalance in our world, we should correct it, and we should fix it, and we should definitely work on it. We don't need to clutter up, junk our planet, hurt our animals. We don't need to do that. And so we do need to care for our planet. So I think it's very important that we do try to do the best for caring for our planet, but also realize that the planet's still in God's hands.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to keep those two things. And if you realize, that puts me right smack dab on both sides of the aisle, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not saying shove a bunch of pollutants in the air, but I'm also saying, yeah, if I buy a straw tomorrow, I'm not going to kill every turtle in the ocean.
Right.
I just don't buy that. And I mean, some of these things get really confusing. I mean, I just recently bought a truck, right?
Right.
It's new to me.
Oh.
New to me.
Killing the environment with that.
Yeah, well, I looked at the EVs, right? I looked at the because I wanted a truck, but I even looked at some of the electrical trucks. And basically what I found was that for the battery that I would need to even do my basic functions, I would have to drive something like 400,000 miles on that battery before I even came close to nullifying my carbon footprint.
Yeah.
That is to say, all those big trucks mining, the lithium stuff, and all the, diesels and the, all the equipment that goes with, those are all not electric powered.
Yeah.
Right? Those are all gas powered engines. And the production cost and carbon footprint that is left by producing that electric vehicle is by far more than it is for the standard truck.
Right.
That's not to say it won't get better. That's not to say it won't get better in time. And hey, more power to them. I hope it does get better. Maybe my next vehicle will be an electric one. I'm not opposed. But
I got to tell you, I have an electric mower, and I will never go back to gas powered. But it's not so much a protest against gas powered. It's actually because it's so much easier, which I know. The electricity comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
But it's actually it's a lot cleaner. I mean, I mowed with a gas mower all till I was I had my own house, and it's always kind of greasy and nasty, and all this stuff. It's like press a button, turns on, I mow my lawn, and it's done.
I will say some of these electric things have been really awesome.
They are. Yeah, they are.
They really are.
They really are. Pretty great.
I absolutely agree with that. So that's my story. I went pretty heavy there for a little bit.
Hey, you blacked out for a second, I think, but you're okay. Now, just because you brought this up about kind of the trickle economics and stuff, something I just saw just made me think of it, is that I've seen a lot of TikToks recently of people who are they'll go up to a homeless guy and and say, "Oh, when's the last time you had a shower?" And the guy will be like, "Probably a couple of years." And they'll And so they'll do this whole. They're filming everything.
Yeah.
They're taking the guy to they'll take him into Walmart or whatever, buy him fresh clothes, take him to a hotel, pay for a room, and let the guy go up. And then they're like, "Hey, go up there, and then I'm going to go take you. You get a haircut." Like they do the whole thing, and they probably spend $1,000 on this guy. You know.
Yeah.
And then the comments are all like, "I can't believe you'd film this and use this as personal gain and all this stuff for your channel or everything." But you also consider the reason he can just walk around and spend $1,000 on a random homeless guy is because he's getting money from doing these videos.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, it's just an interesting.
Well, I think that's one of those things too, where it's like, if you have somebody that's doing good, it's one of those things. It's a real question. If you have somebody who's doing good but for the wrong reasons,
right?
Is he not doing good, or is he still doing good even though the reason's wrong?
Right. It's
right, because at the end of the day, this man is going and taking care of somebody who's homeless, which is a biblical mandate. Like, this is what we're called to do as Christians. Get this, guys. We're called to help people, and this guy is doing it. Now, he might be doing it for all the wrong reasons. But,
sure, yeah.
But do you really think that this homeless man cares that his makeover was recorded?
Right.
I doubt it, and the guy likes it because he benefits on his page. And this guy benefits, and who knows? Maybe it's the turning point in his life. Maybe things change and things get better. Here's for hoping.
Yeah.
I mean, but
I don't know. It's just interesting. There's a YouTube guy named Mr. Beast. He's like the biggest YouTuber on the Facebook. He's very. I mean, I hate to say because I'm sure some people will deny it, but he's a very altruistic guy.
Yeah.
Because he'll make hundreds of thousands of dollars off of a video, and then they'll have stuff like. And I don't even think he made a video on this, but he actually did something where he bought like $200,000 worth of turkeys, and at Thanksgiving he just went around and cars pulled up and they just gave people turkeys, and it wasn't like he didn't charge anybody, he didn't do anything. He does stuff like that all the time. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know when you start talking about that, but yeah, I mean, as a Christian though, you're supposed to do good.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing. I think sometimes we get so divided on certain things that we will even attack that which is good just because we see some bad motivation behind it. It's like, I don't get me wrong. I mean, if their bad motivation is eventually they want to lock these people up in cages, like, oh, okay, that's bad. Yeah. Like that's a bad end product. But if he helps a bunch of people and what he gets from it is a bunch of quote unquote glory. Don't get me wrong. I'm probably not going to be the one giving it to him. I'm not going to go watch his TikTok page or YouTube page, but I'm glad he's helping people.
Yeah,
right.
That's good. Yeah.
I'm kind of happy that people are helped. Even through him.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, that's my foundation. Yeah. I wanted to lay that as a foundation so that next time we can handle like a Hunter Biden story.
Hunter Biden,
or maybe a Donald Trump story. Ooh, that's getting ooh.
Have you heard the we were talking about conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah.
So I was looking up conspiracy theories. There's a conspiracy theory that Donald Trump and his family are time travelers because apparently their ancestors way back were some of the people who took the machines of Tesla.
Oh yeah.
Like all his crazy machines, no one knew what they were. They went in and confiscated all of it. And so there's a theory that they're time travelers and that they stole a time machine from him.
Probably went to the future and found out how not to, how to live for half of forever or something.
Right. Well, figured out how to make the money, invest well.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought that was hilarious.
It reminds me of an old SNL clip with like Future Man and the investor. They did this chart and it's like, well, here's how you made your money. You put your money in here, and it rose and rose, and then you pulled all your money out right before it collapsed. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm from the future. I knew it was going to collapse." Anyway,
I'm going to look that up because I like Saturday Night Live.
That's one of those skits too. It's like there's certain skits out there that I absolutely love, and I'm always like, oh yeah, you should go see it, and then you can't find them anywhere.
Oh really?
Like if I ever find it, I'll show it to you. But
okay, yeah.
There was one. Oh man, a long time ago, and I've looked for it over and over and over again, and I can't find the thing for my life. One day I'll find it. I don't even want to tell you about it because then you can be like, oh man, I can't see it, and I'm like, I know, I can't ever find it. Sorry. All right, let's move on to our next section here, which is basically the basics of the faith. And for today, what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about the first commandment. See, we've been talking about the catechisms. We talked about saints and all that kind of fun and exciting stuff. But I really wanted to I wanted to come down today on the first commandment, because this is the one. If you've ever read the large catechism, Luther's large catechism, this one's like huge. Mm-hmm. And I also think it's huge, also kind of going back again to the point I made earlier, as we lay our foundations down. Luther makes a very, very important point whenever he deals with the first commandment. And I think it's an important point that goes into politics, it goes into our everyday lives, and it goes into the rest of how you read not just the scripture, but also even the catechism itself. And the point that Luther makes in the large catechism with the first commandment is this: everybody has a God. Everybody. You have a God. I have a God. Everybody out there has a God. Now, if you're a person that's atheist, you say, I don't have a God. Yes, you do. You have a God. And that's the point that Luther really, really makes. He says, look, whatever you turn to, in your time of, dare you say, in your time of distress or need or whatever, that's your God. Mm-hmm. And you'll find yourself turning to it over and over and over again. And that's your God. So just pay attention to what you're doing and how you're doing it, because your actions and your words and kind of your own thoughts, dead giveaway. Mm-hmm. Now, it used to be the big one was always money, right? Money.
Right.
I'm not going to say that people don't use money as a god nowadays. Of course they do. There's those, fat cats wherever, that kind of utilize money and it's their god. But I find, that money isn't the biggest god in the world right now in terms of people that are atheists that claim that they have no God. I think science is one of them. Mm-hmm. Science is a huge one, right? And I always bring this up to people, like, whenever you first get hurt or injured, your first reaction might be, well, call a doctor, call an ambulance. And again, I don't want to knock that. That's a good practice, right?
Right.
Call an ambulance. But at the very least, if not your first thought, your second thought should be, I need to go to the Lord in prayer, right? Maybe that should even be your first thought, and maybe you say, hey, call 911, I'm going to say a prayer. I don't know how you're going to do it. But the thing is a lot of times what we do is even when we find ourselves in times of need, we look for some kind of scientific answer. Mm-hmm. The next one that I found, and this one is increasing, and this is part of the reason I bring it up as well, is politics. Mm-hmm. Politics is like the newest god of the age. It is crazy. You just listen to some people talk, and on both sides of the aisle, I've heard this from multiple people on both sides of the aisle. If so and so doesn't win this election, the world's over. Yeah, and it's just like you take a deep breath, because they mean well. They're not trying to, But look, if so and so is elected or not elected, at the end of the day, God is still in control, right? This is His world, right? And so, no, I mean, maybe I hope this politician gets elected. I'll go vote for that person, that particular politician. But I don't put all my hope and trust in that particular person.
Yeah, that would be a bad idea. To think everything's going to be solved by one individual person, it's just, it doesn't really work.
Well, and it's part of the reason. And again, hey, we're going to talk about Biden and we're going to talk about Trump. It goes in the same front. Like, look at the political spread and look at how people talk about this. Like, look, Trump made his millions and billions or whatever it is by being completely egotistical. Mm-hmm. Like, he is an egotistical maniac. I am not going to stand here and say he is some holy man.
Right.
Biden is also very corrupt. And they got more stuff coming out by the day, by the hour. about his corruption and some of his dealings. And my guess is even if I say that, if 20 people listen to this, you'll have 10 people that react to the Trump saying, no, he didn't do those bad things,
Right, yeah.
And you'll have 20 people on the others, or 10 people on the other side go, no, Biden didn't do that. He wasn't in the room when Hunter did it, or he wasn't this. They'll basically try to skirt around, the bad things about Biden, or they'll try to skirt around the bad things about Trump. Mm-hmm. And my opinion is like, look, they're bad people. Now, maybe I still agree with some of the policies that they're in favor of, or against, or whatever. That might be true, and maybe I still want them in office for whatever reason. But I'm not going to sit here and say, yes, they're my Messiah.
Yeah. No, that would be a very bad idea to follow somebody who, because it's a game. It's like or I don't know if it's a game, but there is definitely things you have to do to get to that level of politics.
Yes.
There's deals you have to make. There's things you have to, people can have their whole career ruined,
yeah,
in 1 second, and so you got to do a lot to get through it. And so I don't know, by the time anybody gets that level, I'm never like, but they're the good one, though.
Yeah,
it's
they're the good one.
There's probably something that's not great about them,
Oh, so. Yeah. But I've just seen the political divide in our country go absolutely crazy. To the point where some of the chants that you hear these people saying on the streets, for one party or the other, sound very religious. They sound very, almost faith based, and it's kind of if I'm honest, it's kind of creepy to me. Like I hear them and I'm like, wow, that's, But it kind of goes back to Luther's point, right? The first commandment: you have a God.
Yeah.
Now figure out what your God is, because the God of the Scripture calls on you and says, I am the only God. There is but one, and it is me. That's right. What the God of the Bible says. And you need to kind of work on that. In fact, as Luther kind of places it, and I agree with him because I'm Lutheran. No, I'm joking. I agree with him because I think he's right.
Right.
Luther is basically going to say, look, the 10 commandments are the first commandment and then 9 ways to break the first commandment. And so you go, well, what do you mean by that, Pastor Chris? Well, simple. It's like, so you get to the 5th commandment, thou shalt not kill, right? Don't murder. Don't murder people. Well, what happens when we murder people? Well, God is the God of life and death. He chooses when life begins, and he chooses when it ends. Mm-hmm. I know that can be a scandal sometimes to people, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
God is God. So what are you saying whenever you murder somebody? You're basically saying, look, God, that person over there, you're letting them live too long. I need to step in to do your job, God. I need to kill that person so that they don't live any longer. And basically you're trying to take the place of God. You're putting yourself first, which is a lot of times for a lot of people who their God is. Their God is the God of self. My rules, my standards, my everything. Like I'm the one that does it all. And so in a case like murder or even theft is, God, you've given me these great gifts, but you didn't give me this, and I deserve to have this, and so I'm going to go ahead and just grab it. I'm going to take it. You're not the God of me. I'm the God of me. Yeah. And so it becomes...
You messed up. I need to fix this for you.
And so it becomes that element. And so this is like in a lot of ways how we look at all the 10 Commandments is just this idea that like I'm in charge or I'm in control. And it's all foundationed on the very first commandment. Mm-hmm. You shall have no other gods. And if you really dissect it, you have a God. And that's just it. You have a God.
Yes.
No matter who you are, no matter what you think, whether you go to church, don't go to church, you have a God.
Yeah.
The question is, what is your God?
Right.
Who is your God?
I want to quickly say that I love that you said the phrase, what happens when we murder people, like we do it all the time. Like, just every once in a while. You ever been out, you murdered somebody, and then you're like, I need to get back to church. I shouldn't be doing that.
I shouldn't be all out there murdering people.
But, I mean, it is very true, though. It's like you replace, there's people, when I don't know, I would say my youth group growing up, not a lot of us are still Christians, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, you just replace that with other things, And as much as you want to say, I'm not going to be, I'm not religious, I don't believe in that. It's like, you're going to find something, like you said, to latch on to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something to believe in, something to go to when you're, it's sad when people do that, but it's, I don't know. I guess back to so we were talking about with the therapy thing, like you need your foundation of church and
yeah, absolutely. In a lot of ways, that foundation of faith, especially when it comes to therapy, I think personally helps you through.
Yeah.
Therapist there is to help you. But again, the therapist's job isn't to do the work for you. It's to help guide you through the work that you have to do. Mm-hmm. As far as a session goes, this has been a pretty heavy podcast.
This has been a heavy podcast.
Heavier podcast.
Yeah.
I think we need to hear about how you're famous. Wait. No.
How I'm famous?
Do we got any other stories? Because we had the executive.
The Power Ranger executive.
Ranger executive. And then last week, what did we have last week?
I did an interview on NPR.
That's right, NPR.
But that wasn't like, I emailed someone and was like, hey, I have an album, my band has an album. And they're like, all right, we'll do an interview with you. So, you really, as long as you have something to promote, they'll pretty much interview
Look
you.
at this, everybody. Casey Doremus is humble.
I'm
not. In terms of this, like, I'm going to speak for him. He's famous. He's famous. You know what? You're the voice of Kidder Music.
I am. Yeah. Well, on occasion.
See. Every now and again, I watch like Hulu or something, and like a commercial comes on for Kidder Music, and I'm like, that's Casey.
Yeah, I'll do a voiceover on occasion. I do their social media, so I edit videos for them. So a few times we do like we've done a Hulu ad a couple times, and so I'll do a voiceover. So every once in a while, if you're on Hulu, you might hear me. Who knows?
See. This all goes into my theory that Casey Doremus is actually wildly famous.
I've gotten to do cool things. I feel like you get out there. I don't know, get to do some different stuff.
I'm sitting now with somebody who's wildly famous
in small certain areas.
Step aside, Harrison Ford.
This
is Casey Doremus' time at fame.
We all know your days are numbered. I'm coming for you. I'm right there. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
That's the whole being a creator. I say in air quotes that you just put stuff out there. You never know what you might do. Yeah. So.
Well, as it turns out, you're just wildly famous. So,
well, I did do. If you want to go on that subject, I did. I made a video because I used to work for a concert venue. That was my first real job out of college. As I worked at a concert venue.
Yeah.
And at the time, I tried to find videos like anything to help you, about concert venue work, anything, nothing. And so I decided I made this spreadsheet that was all it had. All your jobs, bartenders, security, everything. And I had it all mapped out to where you could set how much money you're spending, how much are you paying the band, how much are you doing this, all this stuff. And then you can type in how many people you're going to need for the show, and it'll even factor in how many hours roughly they're working, how much you're going to pay them. I spent months and months on the spreadsheet while I worked there. And so I made a video about it. Yeah. And it's up to, I think, 6,000 views, which is not a lot. Yeah. But it's one of those where I get random messages from people just about that video being like, dude, you're so amazing. And I'm like, that's the only video that anybody knows. But it's not even that famous. It's only a very small niche of people who look it up, who know anything,
So I always say I have this years and years and years ago. I used to, and all the nerds out there are going to be like, yes, but I used to time my PowerPoint slides.
Oh, yeah.
And I needed to time them very specifically for what I was trying to do, and it was over the allowable limit for what Microsoft allowed at the time.
Oh, wow.
So what I did is I used Window Movie Maker, and I made a timer. The timer was 2 hours long.
Oh, wow.
And it was just with a black background with white letters, white numbers. Yeah. That was it.
But did you have to individually go in and put, oh, man.
Yes, I did. Don't get me wrong, copy and paste is your friend, right?
Yeah.
Changing one thing and then copying, pasting, and so on and so forth. So, I had tricks. But, yes, I made this whole thing from scratch, and I wanted to – I realized that, technology ebbs and flows, and so I put it on YouTube because just in case I needed to download it again, I wanted it up there. That thing is up to 30,000 views.
Really?
It is crazy.
See, you're famous. Look at that.
Yes, because of my timer.
those things happen. It's really funny how some things just kind of explode.
Yeah.
I made a 2-minute video of me delacquering a trumpet, which I mean, literally, you put it in vinegar and then it takes all the finish off, and jazz people like that.
Yeah.
I put it on a channel. About a year and a half later, I had not gotten on the channel. I looked at it was up to like 30,000 views, and all these comments are like angry, like, why didn't you explain how to do this? What's wrong with you? Why aren't you answering your comments? And it was like, oh my God, I didn't know anybody saw the video. It's like, it wasn't a good video either. It was really poorly recorded and edited, but man, people were very, very angry about it.
Yeah, they were.
It's just, But I guess that's the world of being famous. Look at you, a 2-hour timer on YouTube.
2-hour timer on the YouTube.
Very famous. That's
very
good.
Famous. Sometimes I get comments. What's really funny, though, is the spam comments.
Oh, yeah.
You look really good in this video. You should come check out. What?
Yeah, click this link.
Right? What part of this 2-hour timer do I look so good in? I mean...
Yeah.
So there you go.
There we go.
Our break of the mundane into how Casey Doremus is famous.
Maybe we'll see if something happens next.
Well, we're gonna have to see, because I feel like this is a trend, going on right now.
Yeah, it's you never know.
You never know. You never know.
Well, now comes our if we're ready.
Oh yeah,
for
we're
it,
ready for it.
We're ready for church chatter.
Church chatter. All right. I like this. Well, I was just talking to Casey actually before the show. I like that.
Before the show.
Before the show. I was actually out of town for a little bit. Made it down to the Lake of the Ozarks, which is awesome.
Ooh, beautiful, yeah.
And it was, I'll be honest, it was my kind of vacation, because there for like a day or 2 days, I did almost nothing.
That's beautiful.
Which is really what you want in a vacation.
Yeah.
I checked some emails, did this, did that, but by and large, I did nothing.
Yeah.
Didn't really go a whole lot of places or anything else. Just did. It was fun. Anyway, but when I got back to church, man,
that fan was covered. Anyway, sorry.
When I got back to church, boy, I tell you, there was people in church hooking up cables and wires.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep, right there. Yeah, Casey, you were out there hooking up some cables.
Yeah.
So we got the lectern mic, I think, done. That's it.
Yeah, we got the lectern mic. This is real important stuff. We got the lectern mic.
Important. Now, so for those of you that do not know, the last couple weeks, we got hooked up about as good as we could, as quick as we could, to get us back in church. But we had a couple mic issues where we couldn't find the correct wire, and so we finally got some of those worked out. And it was one of those things where it shouldn't have been as big of a task as it is. But sometimes I think people like myself, and I mainly blame myself, I overcomplicate things. But yeah. So the point is that, long story long, we got the lectern mic.
It's working.
It's working. I think the other thing, though, too, is also the cushions.
Oh, yes. Big, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
See, now I really do feel like I'm talking on NPR. Oh, the cushions.
The cushions.
It's so
we
true.
We got new cushions.
It's got but no, the pew cushions. Like, we've had those red ones forever and ever. I don't even know how old they are. I think they're older than me. I don't know about that. That might not be true.
Yeah, I don't know.
But they could be. They could be as old as me. But we got new ones, and they are really, really beautiful. They're really nice looking.
It does mess with your head a little bit because they're kind of a closer color to the actual stained wood of the pew.
Yes.
So you look and you're kind of like your head, it messes with your eyes a little bit, but not because they're beautiful, not because they're bad, just because it's not that bright red that's matching the carpet. So it's like, whoa, it takes you back a sec.
Yes, it's a darker maroon, and so it's good. Our Bible class, our adult Bible.
You say diapers?
I think I said adite.
I
think I was trying to say adult, and I said adite. I don't know what that word means, so if it's offensive to somebody, I apologize, because I don't know what adite even means.
This is the best church chatter segment we've ever had. We're talking about the lectern mic and the cushions.
Hey, it's the stuff that's important.
It is important. Yeah,
it's a church chatter.
Church chatter.
Church chatter. Anyway, so we have the cushions. We have adult Bible classes that started meeting again this last week. The one upstairs in the meeting room and also the one downstairs in the parish hall. So that's really exciting. Mm-hmm. We had our guest pastor, Pastor Schetzel, here this past weekend.
Yeah.
And he was so interesting to talk to. And I hope that the people that kind of gathered got a chance to meet him and talk to him. I mean, his life story was very, very interesting. And something he actually kind of tagged along into something that we will probably have to talk about at some point, and that is the Seminex, which happened in 1974. And he was involved in that to a certain degree. He actually graduated from Seminex. So those of you that know. Those of you that don't know, allow me to give you a brief explanation. I don't want the podcast to get too long because we will have to cover this a little bit more in depth at some other time.
Preview.
And basically the basic gist of it is some false doctrine started coming out in the late 60s. 67, 68, somewhere around there. And it come out that some of the professors at the St. Louis Seminary were teaching some things. Now, what they were
St. Louis. Oh, man. All right.
I went to St. Louis. I love St. Louis.
I have roots in St. Louis, so it makes me sad.
So some false doctrine was being taught. And basically what happened is that the Synod tried to get rid of some of those false teachers. A lot of politics went back and forth, but eventually a lot of people got really upset, especially those that were in seminary at the time, and they had this gigantic walkout in 1974, and it's sometimes called Seminex. They kind of established their own school and their own thing. The group that was quote-unquote seminary in exile, which is what they called themselves, eventually combined with some other Lutheran churches, and this amalgamation of all these eventually became known as the ELCA. And so, again, I'm going to go into that in a lot more detail. Who knows? Maybe even next time. But
that's a good that's a good setup for the next one.
Right.
Good preview. Yeah,
we can talk about that. But Pastor Schetzel was actually involved. He graduated through Seminex. And then went through almost like the ELCA route, but then somebody kind of guided him back to Missouri Synod, and so that's why he kind of talked. Whenever we ate dinner and stuff, he talked about how he had like 2.5 vicarages, and that's why, because he had graduated. So just a very tumultuous time in our Synod, and very interesting. Sitting and talking to him a little bit, and just hearing from him. I didn't realize he had quite that much history in there, and it was just it was pretty awesome to sit and really just chat with him for a little bit. And I didn't even get that much time. But.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy when you think about it. I mean, how long was he there for? A year?
A year, vicarage,
1 year, and he said it's been 40 years since he was. I mean, can you imagine? Obviously we're very young, spry people, so it's to think, man, 40 years, and you walk back into the same building, That'd be I don't know. It's kind of crazy to think about how that would feel, but that's interesting.
So, and so it was very cool having him there. Lots of church chatter on that front. Now, again, another highlight for next week, talking about Synod and all the great and wonderful stuff. Our big Synod convention, which is kind of triennial, happens every 3 years. Actually starts on July 29th. Now, that's coming right up, everybody. That's coming right up. People are already starting to gather right there. I think it's in Milwaukee. Okay. I had to look at my phone. I'm looking at my phone. Where's it at? It's in Milwaukee. So this is one of those things where if you're into Synod politics at all, you're going to see a lot of stuff flying around here, a lot of people with wild opinions about some of these things. And I'll be honest with you, I think next week, instead of just doing my regular current events, I'll probably end up talking about some of the synodical politics that are going on. Cool. Some of the resolutions that have been passed or not passed, and some of the backbone behind some of those things.
Interesting.
Because, this is just one of those things that, again, most people don't know,
Right.
They don't get into synodical politics. The president has already been elected. It's still Matthew Harrison.
Matthew Harrison.
Yeah,
we all know.
He was reelected. Years ago, our synod did this thing where they actually separated the presidential vote from the convention. I think it became too heated or something in the actual convention, and they didn't want it to disrupt it. I could be wrong on that. That's me trying to recall history that I really probably don't know anything about. But anyway, regardless of how it came about, that's the way it is. You actually do the election of the president before the actual convention, and so our president is Matthew Harrison for the next 3 years. So I think it's his fourth term. So he is our president.
Yeah.
And then the synodical convention, the 68th triannual regular convention is on July 29th through August 3rd. So
very nice.
I went once. It's really boring.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I did. I went. It was years and years ago. I went to one of them, and it was
but even for you, because you're a very you love researching. If I start reading a book, I instantly start getting tired, and I can't really.
Well, let me tell you, and again, I don't know what time we're at, but let me tell you something. Whenever I went, it was they send you all these books, and we're talking a massive book of all these resolutions and all these things. And if you're big into those, that's awesome. Maybe you really I love this, but I for me, it just kind of my eyes gloss over.
Yeah.
I read them all though. I wanted to be very diligent.
That is incredible willpower because I just couldn't.
And then you get there, and they hand you another book.
Oh man!
And these are all not new resolutions, but the changes, and they've had the floor committees, and then they do that every day. Every day you're getting a 100-page book with new stuff in it, and it's I thought, okay, at the time I lived in Wisconsin and it was in St. Louis, and I was like, hey, this might be nice. Maybe I'll have dinner with my family.
Yeah.
No. I think I got dinner with my family one night. I literally would spend all my time in my hotel room reading all the new stuff.
Oh, man.
Because, again, you want to be a diligent person.
Yeah.
And then the floor committees would open real early, and so you'd get there real early, and then they would change stuff. So that by the time it reached the actual convention, you're like, this is not what I read last night. But at the same time, it's if you kind of kept up with it, it was kind of okay. But man, oh man, oh man.
That's incredible. I can't do it. I couldn't do it.
Definitely not my favorite. I'll just say it that way. I think that there are some good people that are interested people that want to be involved in that, and God bless you.
Yes.
I don't have to go anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, sounds like we're setting up. This is good. We're setting up future episodes.
Oh, we're setting it up.
Yeah, we just want to lay the groundwork for this.
We're laying the groundwork.
About this, and there was a cult that started in the Lutheran Church, and now we're going to get it out, and talk about the rise and fall of that.
Oh man. We're going to call it a cult.
I mean. I don't want to listen. I don't want to create waves, but if we really talk about it, it was a cult. Let's be honest. Who knows?
Oh man, I love it.
gotta shut it down. Shut it down.
Oh my goodness gracious. Oh man.
I will tell you that maybe this can be the closet. I don't know, but a friend of mine went to a Christian college called Cedarville, which was in Ohio. He was a journalism major, and so he wrote for the school paper.
Yes.
Well, the president of the school very suddenly resigned. Very weird.
Whoa.
Out of nowhere. No one knew why. Then some other stuff where the son of someone on the school committee was going to become president, which was kind of out of nowhere. Wait, was that guy lined up for this? Because that didn't sound right. So my friend started getting into this. He's a journalist, so he's doing this. He's doing. It ended with the new president, basically said that the school paper cannot print anything until it goes through them first.
Whoa.
For editing. Whoa. And so the paper shut down. My friend literally shut down the school newspaper because they were like, we don't want you you need to stop covering this stuff.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's for real. It really happened. I'm like, man, you really went for it. And
yeah. Well, I mean, that's what a journalist is supposed to do, right?
it is. It's what he's supposed to do. That was his job.
Absolutely.
So we'll uncover more about that.
Yes, we'll uncover more next time. Oh man. Well, anyway, I think this has been fun. Got into some heavier topics today, but I think it's good. Again, setting the groundwork.
Yeah.
But thanks anybody and everybody for joining us. God's blessings to all of you, and well, we'll hear from you next time or see you next time. All right. Bye.